Hello everyone, I am Anna Marie P. Reyes and I'm going to present my output for Chapter 1. Number 1. Certain fundamental beliefs called postulates underlie auditing theory. Which of the following is not a postulate of auditing? Letter A. No long-term conflicts exist between the auditor and the management of the enterprise under audit. B. Economic assertions can be verified. C. The auditor acts exclusively as an auditor. D. An audit has been benefit only to the owners. My answer for number 1 would be letter D. The reason why for letter A, it was mentioned in the basic postulate of auditing identified by Mouts and Sharaf in the philosophy of auditing that letter A is under management support, in which there should be a necessary conflict of interest between the auditors and the management of the enterprise under audit. For letter B, it was also mentioned under data that financial statements and financial data needs to be verifiable. And for letter C, it was also mentioned under professional behavior that when examining financial data for the purpose of expressing an independent opinion thereon, the auditors act exclusively in the capacity of the auditor. Number 2. In all cases, audit reports must A. Be signed by the individual who performed the audit procedures. B. Certify the accuracy of the quantitative information which was audited. C. Communicate the auditor's finding to the general public. And D. Inform readers of the degree of correspondence between the quantifiable information and the established data. My answer for number 2 would be letter D. Inform readers of the degree of correspondence between the quantifiable information and the established criteria. For letter A, the audit report must be signed and dated by the statutory auditors. For letter B, report must be reliable. And for letter C, not all reports are allowed to communicate to the public. Number 3. The auditor communicates the result of his or her work through the medium of the A. Engagement letter, B. Audit report, C. Management letter, and D. Financial statements. For letter A, in engagement letter, terms and conditions of the engagement are stated and principally addressing the scope of the engagement and the terms of compensation for the firm. For letter C, in management letter, it states there the improvements on internal control that was recognized by the auditor and will give it to the client. And for letter D, financial statements are the reports that provide the detail of entities' financial information. Number 4. As used in auditing, which of the following statement best describe assertion? Letter A. Assertions are the representations of the management as to the reliability of the information system. Letter B. Assertions are the auditor's findings to be communicated in the audit report. Letter C. Assertions are the representations of the management as to the firms of financial statements. And letter D. Assertions are found only in the footnotes of the financial statements. My answer would be letter C. Assertions are the representations of management as to the fairness of financial statements. For letter A, attestation is the representation of the management as to the reliability of the information. Letter B, evidence in the auditor's findings to be communicated in the audit report. And for D, footnotes refers to the additional information that helps explain how a company arrived as its financial statement figures. We cannot be able to identify the fairness in the financial statements if we were just looking at the footnotes of financial statements. Number 5. The expertise that distinguishes auditors from accountants is in the A. Ability to interpret generally accepted auditing principles. B. Requirement to possess education beyond the bachelor's degree. C. Accumulation and interpretation of evidence. And D. Ability to interpret ASC statements. My answer would be C. Accumulation and interpretation of evidence. For letter A, accountants are the one that has an ability to interpret generally accepted accounting principles. They are expected to fully disclose disclose and explain the reasons behind any change or update of the standards. For letter B, accountants must have a bachelor's degree in accounting or a similar field. They also need certification in order to increase their value. And for letter D, accountants are the one who has the ability to interpret ASC standards, or this was transitioned in order to create a single database for accounting standards. Number 6. The framework for auditing and related services as addressed by PSA excludes A. Review, B. Tax services, C. Compilation, and D. Agreed upon procedures. My answer would be B. Tax services. Review, compilation, and agreed upon procedures are part of the related services, which is useful for assurance services. Number 7. It refers to the level of auditor's satisfaction as to the reliability of assertions being made by one party for the use of another party. For letter A, confidence level, B, reasonableness level, C, assurance level, and for letter D, tolerable level. My answer for number 7 will be C, assurance level. For letter A, confidence level is the likelihood that the true rate inherent in the client's entire book of services. For letter B, reasonable level includes understanding that there is a remote likelihood that material misstatements will not be prevented or detected on a timely basis. For letter D, tolerable level is essentially the maximum amount of known and likely error an auditor can accept in a financial statement classification without judgment. Number 8. Indicate the level of assurance provided by audit and related services. Audit, review, agreed upon procedures, and compilation. For letter A, high, moderate, none, none. For letter B, high, none, none, none. For letter C, negative, moderate, none, none. And for letter D, absolute, high, limited, and none. My answer would be letter A. High, moderate, none, none. In an audit, there is a high or reasonable level of assurance, while in review, there is a moderate or limited level of assurance. In agreed upon procedures, there is no assurance. Recipients must form their own conclusions. And lastly, in compilation, there is also no assurance because users derive some benefit because it has been performed with due professional skill and care. Number 9. Which of the following is true of the report based on agreed upon procedures? Letter A. The report is restricted to those parties who have agreed to the procedures to be performed. Letter B. The CPA provides the recipients of the report limited assurance as to the reasonableness of the assertions presented in the financial information. Letter C. The report states that the auditor has not recognized any basis that requires revision of the financial statements. Letter D. The report should state that procedures performed are limited to the analytical procedures and injury. My answer would be letter A. The report is restricted to those parties who have agreed to the procedures to be performed. The 3 remaining choices mentioned are part of review report type of service. Number 10. Which of the following is an objective of a review engagement? Letter A. Expressing a positive opinion that the financial information is presented in conformity with generally accepted accounting principles. Letter B. Expressing a limited assurance to users who have agreed as to the procedures that will be performed by the CPA. And C. Reporting whether material modifications should be made to such financial statements to make them conform with generally accepted accounting principles. Letter D. Reporting that the financial statements in all material respects fairly present the financial position and operating results of the client. My answer would be letter C. Reporting whether material modifications should be made to such financial statements to make them conform with generally accepted accounting principles. For letter Letter A. Expressing a positive opinion that the financial information is presented in conformity with generally accepted accounting principle is an audit type of engagement. For letter B, expressing a limited assurance to users who have agreed as to the procedures that will be performed by the CPA is an agreed upon procedures. Letter D, reporting that the financial statements in all material respects fairly present the financial position and operating results of the client is an audit type of engagement. 11. According to the Philippine Standard on Auditing, the procedures employed in doing compilation are A. Designed to enable the accountant to express a limited assurance. B. Designed to enable the accountant to express a negative assurance. C. Not designed to enable the accountant to express any form of assurance. And D. Less extensive than review procedures but more extensive than agreed procedures. My answer would be letter C. Not designed to enable the accountant to express any form of assurance. Letter A and B talks about review engagement, while letter D talks about audit engagement. Number 12. Any services in which the CPA firm issues a written communication that expresses a conclusion with respect to the reliability of a written assertion that is the responsibility of another party is A. Accounting and bookkeeping service, B. Management advisory service, C. Attestation service, and D. Tax services. My answer would be C. Attestation services. Accounting and bookkeeping, management advisory service, and tax services are part of a not related services. 13. The three types of attestation services are A. Audits, review, compilations. B. Audits, compilations, and other attestation services. C. Reviews, compilations, and other attestation services. And D. Audit, reviews, and other attestation services. My answer would be letter D. Audits, reviews, and other attestation services. Letter A. Are type of services performed in connection with the entity's financial statements. Letter B. Other attestation services are not part of services performed in an entity's financial statements. Letter C. Reviews and compilations are part of services that is performed in an entity's financial statements. 14. Which of the following is not primary category of attestation report? A. Compilation report. B. Review report. C. Audit report. D. Special audit report based on the basis of accounting other than the generally accepted accounting principles. My answer would be A. Compilation report. The three remaining choices was mentioned as part of the category of attestation. 15. The primary goal of the CPA in performing the attest function is to A. Detect fraud. B. Examine individual transactions so that the auditor may certify as to their validity. C. Determine whether the client's assertions are fairly stated. D. Assure the consistent application of correct accounting procedures. My answer would be C. Determine whether the client's assertions are fairly stated. The three remaining choices are also part of attest function, but they are actually not the primary goal. 16. Which of the following criteria is unique to the independent auditor's attest function? Letter A. General competence. B. Familiarity with the particular industry of each client. C. Due professional care. And D. Independence. My answer would be D. Independence. Independence in an auditor can be a biggest factor in order to make a presentation more reliable and fairly presented. 17. Assurance engagement. A. Is an engagement in which a practitioner is engaged to issue or does issue a written communication that expresses a conclusion about the reliability of a written assertion that is the responsibility of another party. B is a systematic process of objectively obtaining and evaluating evidence regarding assertions about economic actions and events to ascertain the degree of correspondence between those assertions and established criteria and communicating the results of interested users. C is an engagement in which the auditor provides a moderate level of assurance that the information subject to the engagement is free from material misstatement. Letter D is an engagement intended to enhance the credibility of information about the subject matter by evaluating whether the subject matter conforms in all material respects with suitable criteria, thereby improving the likelihood that the information will meet the needs of intended users. My answer would be letter D. Is an engagement intended to enhance the credibility of information about a subject matter by evaluating whether the subject matter conforms in all material respects with suitable criteria, thereby improving the likelihood that the information will meet the needs of intended users. For letter A, it talks about ATIS engagement. Letter B talks about auditing. Letter C talks about review. 18. The single feature that most clearly distinguishes auditing, attestation, and assurance is A. Type of service, B. Training required to perform the service, C. Scope of services, and D. CPA's approach to the service. My answer would be C. Scope of services. Letter A. Type of service are those offered by in an engagement. Letter B. Trainings are required in order to perform the services properly. Letter D. CPA's approach are really important in every services. Identify the following as financial audit, compliance audit, and operational audit. A supervisor is not carrying out his assigned responsibilities. A company's tax return does not conform to income tax laws and regulations. A municipality's financial statements correctly show actual cash receipts and disbursements. And lastly, a company's receiving department is inefficient. Letter A. CA, CA, FA, and OA. B. OA, CA, CA, OA. C. OA, CA, FA, and OA. D. CA, CA, FA, and CA. My answer would be C. Operational audit, compliance audit, financial audit, and operational audit. In the first situation, it talks about the manner that the supervisor was being performed in which he is not carrying out his assigned responsibilities. So my answer would be operational audit. In second situation, it talks about compliance, in which it was mentioned that the company's tax return does not conform to income tax laws and regulations. Therefore, my answer would be compliance audit. In the third situation, it talks about accounting process applied in the business, in which a municipality's financial statements correctly show actual cash receipts and disbursement. Therefore, my answer would be financial audit. In fourth situation, it talks about the responsibilities in which a company's receiving department is inefficient. Therefore, my answer would be operational audit. 20. The criteria for evaluating quantitative information vary. For example, in the audit of historical financial statements by CPA firms, the criteria are usually A. Generally accepted auditing standards, B. Generally accepted auditing principles, C. Regulations of the Internal Revenue Service, and D. Regulations of the Securities and Exchange Commission. My answer would be letter B. Generally accepted accounting principles. For letter A, GAAs represent measures of the quality of the auditor's performance. These standards should look at a minimum standard of performance that auditors should follow. For C and D, there are other regulations or standards that these sectors have been provided. 21. Which of the following types of audit uses as its criteria laws and regulations? Letter A. Operational audit. Letter B. Compliance audit. Letter C. Financial statement audit. Letter D. Financial audit. My answer would be letter B. Compliance audit. In letter A, operational audit talks about the examination of manner and responsibilities in which an organization conducts business. In letter C, financial statement audit talks about the examination of an entity's financial statements. And for letter D, financial audit refers to an accounting process applied in business. 22. An operational audit is designed to A. Assess the efficiency and effectiveness of management operating procedures. B. Assess the presentation of management financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. C. Determine whether management has complied with applicable laws and regulations. And D. Determine whether the audit committee of the board of directors is effectively discharging its responsibility to oversee management's operations. My answer would be letter A. Assess the efficiency and effectiveness of management's operating procedures. For letter B, it talks about financial audit. For letter C, it talks about compliance audit. And for letter D, it talks about production audit. 23. A review of any part of an organization's procedures and methods for the purpose of evaluating efficiency and effectiveness is classified as A. Audit of financial statements. B. Compliance audit. C. Operational audit. And D. Production audit. My answer would be C. Operational audit. Audit of financial statements does not provide any procedural or operational activities. Compliance audit are related to the regulations and law. Production audit provides value by evaluating the process, its control, risks, and the achievement of the objectives. 24. Which of the following is more difficult to evaluate objectively? A. Efficiency and effectiveness of operations. B. Compliance with government regulations. C. Presentation of financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And D. All three of the above are equally difficult. My answer would be efficiency and effectiveness of operations. When we say compliance and presentation of financial statements in accordance with GAAP, we can already identify that these cannot be recognized as a difficult in terms in evaluating objectively, simply because there are already factors or standards that needs to be followed so that the standards will be achieved in accordance with the correct form. While efficiency and effectiveness are more difficult to evaluate, it's because these cannot be achieved by doing nothing. It needs a lot of time and effort. Independent auditing can be best described as A. Branch of accounting. B. Discipline that attests to the results of accounting and other operations and data. C. Professional activity that measures and communicates financial and business data. D. Regulatory function that prevents the issuance of improper financial information. My answer would be B. Discipline that attests to the results of accounting and other operations data. Independence in auditing are a unique form of standard, simply because by just having this kind of standard, it would really be easy for an auditor to present fairly the presentation and to prove that the information are reliable. 26. A financial statement audit is A. Confirms that financial statements assertion are accurate. B. Lends credibility to the financial statement. C. Guarantees that financial statements are presented fairly. D. Assures that fraud had been detected. My answer would be B. Lends credibility to the financial statements. An audit increases the value and credibility of the financial statements produced by management, thus increasing user confidence in the financial statement. Audited financial statements add credibility if a potential buyer requests financial statements. 27. Which of the following best describes the objective of an audit of financial statements? A. To express an opinion whether the financial statements are prepared in accordance with prescribed criteria. B. To express an assurance as to the future viability of the entity whose financial statements are being audited. C. To express an assurance about the management's efficiency or effectiveness in conducting the operations of entity. D. To express an opinion whether the financial statements are prepared in all material respect in accordance with an identified financial reporting framework. My answer would be D. To express an opinion whether the financial statements are prepared in all material respect in accordance with an identified financial reporting framework. Among the three choices, letter D has explained and described exactly the objective of an audit of financial statement. 28. Because an external auditor is paid a fee by a client company, he or she A. Is absolutely independent and may conduct an audit. B. May be sufficiently independent to conduct an audit. C. Is never considered to be independent. D. Must receive approval of the Securities and Exchange Commission before conducting an audit. My answer would be B. May be sufficiently independent to conduct an audit. In external auditors, CPAs are the ones performing the audit. That is why it is more possible for them to conduct an audit independently simply because they are professional. 29. Which of the following is responsible for an entity's financial statements? A. The entity's management. B. The entity's internal auditors. C. The entity's audit committee. And D. The entity's board of directors. My answer would be A. The entity's management. The responsible for entity's financial statement are the management, not the auditors, audit committee, and board of directors. Auditors are the ones who are giving an opinion on the financial statements. Management are the ones who are preparing the financial statements. 30. The best statement of the responsibility of the auditor with respect to audited financial statement is A. The audit of the financial statements relieves management of its responsibility. B. The auditor's responsibility is confined to his expression of opinion about the audited financial statements. C. The responsibility over the financial statements rests with the management and the auditor assumes responsibility with respect to the notes of the financial statements. And D. The auditor is responsible only to his unqualified opinion but not for any other type of opinion. My answer would be letter B. The auditor's responsibility is confined to his expression of opinion about the audited financial statements. The only responsibility that an auditor has is to plan and perform the audit to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements are free of material misstatement, whether caused by error or fraud. Auditors doesn't relieve management of its responsibilities, and he is not also responsible only to his unqualified opinion. And that will be all. Thank you.